Welcome to the Sherry Welsh Coaching Podcast. This is Phil Johnson, and joining me today is leadership coach and author Sherry Welsh of sherrywelsh.com. Sherry coaches individuals privately, and she also works with groups within companies. And you can get her book, which is titled Slowing Down: Unexpected Ways to Thrive as a Female Leader, from any major book retailer. Sherry, thanks for being with us today.
Hi, Phil. Great to be here.
Sherry, in a number of podcasts, you've mentioned something called empowering questions or clarifying questions as a way to ask for what you want or have transparency in the context of the trust model, or as part of the process of turning complaints or expectations into strong co-created agreements. But we haven't really taken the time to focus on these types of questions, on empowering questions or clarifying questions. But I think there's quite a bit here in these questions as a topic. So I wonder if today you could start by giving us a definition of empowering questions and clarifying questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's something I learned when I got certified many years ago, and I've used it in my own life and seen the difference it makes in how I communicate more effectively with people in my world. And it's the first thing I do with clients is I give them a list of sample empowering, clarifying questions that I put together that I use for mostly business purposes. And you can also use them, for private purposes. So we'll talk about both today. An empowering question is an open-ended question that can not only be answered by yes or no. That's called a closed-ended question. So an open-ended question begins with how, what, where, when, who, that type of open-ended word. And as you ask a question that's open-ended, the person who is there to answer the question, whether they're just an individual that you're talking to or whether you're talking in a greater context of a group setting or a team, they have to give you more than just a yes or no answer when they answer a question that begins with how, what, who, when, and where. Now, what makes it empowering is when you ask the question that begins with an open-ended word like how, what, who, when, where. What you put with it is having the conversation move in a forward direction and having the person see that they can move and take some action and move forward in whatever they are trying to do. So the reason you use empowering questions are to get someone who's in either level 1 or level 2 energy and they feel stuck or they're digging in their heels to fight and defend themselves and argue why they're right and you're wrong. So using an open-ended, empowering question can shift that person out of that stuck, level 1, helpless feeling into a more empowered state where they're now taking action. They're now seeing that there's something they can do about whatever it is they were believing they were stuck on. Mm-hmm. So that's what makes it an empowering question. A clarifying question is one that asks, again, open-ended, how, what, who, where, when, and wants more detail specifically, so that now you can get more on the table to work with. And the conversation is going to be more productive for both of you. Because now you can get more clarity to be able to develop a plan to move forward in whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish and getting done. So it can be used in all contexts. It can be used in business setting, in team meetings, in individual interactions, and it can also be used at home with family dynamics, in working as a parent to a child, or with a spouse, or with in-laws, or extended family, whatever it might be. So open-ended and empowering questions are something that I start with in the very beginning of time I work together with a client so that they can get the skill and start working with it and get better and more natural with it. So it becomes how they operate, who they are when they talk to others and how they ask questions and how they keep people moving forward, both themselves and others that they're working with.
Yeah. That's interesting that this is the first thing that you do with clients. I think, to me, it seems like that should be an indicator of kind of the level of importance of learning how to very naturally operate in this mode of asking empowering and clarifying questions rather than ones that imply blame or put people on the defensive. Now, you mentioned the energy levels a little bit. I wonder if you could talk in a bit more detail about how these sorts of questions relate to the energy levels.
Sure, yeah. And you touched on, inferring blame and judgment is with the one word why, which is not in that list that I mentioned. So why is a word that is open-ended, but I encourage clients to minimize the amount of time they use that word and to really notice when they do use it, what happens with the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So using the word why did you do that? Why did that happen? Why didn't you get it to me on time? Why can't you get it to me on time? All of a sudden now the person is hearing that you're not satisfied with what they're doing and you're seeing it as wrong. So now they want to defend. Well, the reason I can't get it to you is because so-and-so hasn't given me what I need, so it's their fault. So now you shift into blame mode, which is level 2.
Yeah.
Or you start to feel subpar. You start to feel inferior. You start to feel, well, maybe I don't have what it takes to do this job. Maybe I don't have what it takes to do this task. And then all that self-doubt starts to creep in, which takes you to your level 1.
Mm-hmm.
So why is important that you touched on that and mentioned the defensiveness and what can take you to level 1, level 2. So that is something I wanted to highlight there. So actually why can be a disempowering question, right? Instead of an empowering one. So what happens when you do use empowering questions, meaning you're shifting someone who's feeling stuck, they're at level 1, feeling like there's nothing they can do, they're waiting on someone for information, so there's it's out of their hands whether they're going to meet the deadline or not. That's a level 1 mindset. That's a level 1 feeling going on there based on what they're believing. That they have no power, they have no control over it. It's at the mercy of someone else in the organization. Level 2, when someone's in level 2 and they're fighting through time, they're fighting with a packed schedule, they're fighting with a tight deadline, they're fighting with requirements from a customer that keep changing.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're fighting with variability, with changing requests, whatever it might be. That's a level 2 space that they're in, energy level. So when people are operating in those energy levels, they're very draining and they're very disempowered in those states. They're feeling like all they can do is fight against it and continue to validate and defend why they aren't getting something done on time or why they won't be able to get something done on time. So using empowering and clarifying questions helps move that person out of that mindset of being stuck, out of level 1, or out of that mindset of defending, out of level 2, into at least level 3 energy to get a plan together to start logically putting steps in place to move into action.
And hopefully move them beyond that.
Exactly. So that's the start. You've got to get first at level 3 to be able to move into level 4, 5, 6, and 7. Into really more creative space, into more beautiful, open, unlimited potential space. But you've got to get out of level 1 and 2 to get there. And you don't just jump from level 1 and 2 into level 6 and 7. You got to move into level 3 to start seeing, okay, I can get some traction here. I have some steps logged that make sense that I can take, which is level 3 energy. Now you can move into level 4. All right, well, how's that helping the organization get stronger? How's it helping the business? How's it helping my colleague? And then you can move into level 5 with true partner. Like, okay, if I keep moving here, this is really going to be good for both of us here. And this is really going to make a difference. And this really matters. Now you're starting to feel stronger. You're starting to feel confident. You're starting to feel empowered. That you're back on track. And it's only that you temporarily got off course with your level 1, level 2 thoughts. And so empowering questions and clarifying questions can move you back into the direction you were headed originally. Back on course, back on the path you want to be on.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm a leader or a boss with people reporting to me, and my mode of questioning is naturally to ask why, I may be in a scenario where I'm not upset with someone's performance. I don't think they're inadequate. I'm not blaming them for anything, but my mode of speech is why. I may inadvertently push them down to level 1 or level 2 just by the way I'm asking them questions. So it seems like this is a pretty fundamental skill. You know, if I ask why and that implies blame, somebody's response is most likely to either shut down and just feel helpless and not respond. And that would be a level 1 victim kind of response, or to respond by defending themselves, which is really a level 2 fighter response. Whereas the other mode of questioning is shifting people out of levels 1 and 2, or if they're already out of levels 1 and 2, it can be shifting them up from level 3 into the higher levels of energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so I want to slow that down for a minute and break it down into pieces, because you said a lot of really great things right there, Phil. So when someone has the habit of saying why and asking why, it's truly out of innocence. They, like you said, they're not meaning to infer judgment. They're just trying to understand what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And why they're not going to meet a deadline, or why this person isn't able to do what they said they were going to do. So it could be that they had an agreement, a clear agreement that they co-created, and now they're not able to honor that agreement, and this person wants to know why. So it is out of innocence many times that judgment is now on the receiver of the question. They're now interpreting it as, I'm under attack. So that's the point, is that it's the communicator's responsibility to choose the words they use, the words that come out of their mouth, that are going to be the most productive and effective, given what they want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they want to, attack and accuse, they're going to use those kind of words that do that. But if they're in an organization and a company, even in a family dynamic where you want to have an enjoyable family, relationship occurring, you're going to choose language and words that are going to give you a better optimum outcome, a higher potential for that outcome to be positive and encouraging and enjoyable and productive, depending on where you are. So it does become, this is why we talk about conscious leadership. And in our case, we talk about energy leadership, conscious leadership. We talk about ownership over and over in these podcasts.
Yeah.
And being responsible for what comes out of your mouth. That's accountability, personal accountability on how you lead, how you show up, so that others have less possibility to misunderstand what you meant. So that point is really important, that it could be a habit that you say why a lot. And honestly, I had a client, I was coaching a team of individuals at a manufacturing company, and one of them was in program management. And when I talked about why, you want to minimize how often you use why, she goes, well, that doesn't make sense, because we use why all the time to determine root cause analysis and to get to the root of the problem so we can quickly fix it and get back on track. I said, yeah, I respect that, and I get that. And with IT people, they have also said that. Well, we use why all the time, when we're decoding and writing software programs. I said, that's fine. Why can be useful in a specific process. But why, when you're asking someone about, in an interaction about something that has occurred between the two of you, is going to potentially backfire and be taken as an accusation.
So why, in the context of a team debugging software they're writing, is one thing,
Exactly.
But why, in the context of interpersonal relationships in the office, is a different matter altogether.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So that's why I said minimize the use of why. I didn't say don't ever say it, right? Because it's okay. So what I'm also learning, I had a conversation recently with a client where, they said, well, I want to have this conversation with my son and I'm afraid they might get defensive. I said, well, that's fine. They might get defensive, but you won't know until you start the conversation with them.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to anticipate how someone is going to react to something you're going to say is is just a waste of time. Because no one knows what's going on for that person when they hear whatever comes out of your mouth. So what you want to do is get really good at, and that's why I said I start with helping clients learn these empowering and clarifying types of questions on the front end. So they can start using them immediately and immediately start to see the interaction with others change.
Yeah.
And shift right before their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Because now they're getting more to work with, right? Instead of just getting a yes or no response with a type of question, did you do that? Are you going to get that done on time? The only answer to that question is yes or no. Instead, when you ask an open-ended or empowering question, so how's that timing going for that report to be on time?
Mm-hmm.
That's a different question. You're going to get a different response from the person. They're going to let you know what? I haven't gotten to it yet. And I do have it scheduled for tomorrow. But now you're starting to see, oh, wait a minute. Now timing might be in jeopardy.
Yeah.
Now you can at least talk to them. Wait a minute. Okay, so let's talk about that. What can I do to help you with that? Who else can help you get something off your plate so that you can make sure this gets done on time? So now you're asking them different types of questions that can have them see that the only option isn't that they work on it tomorrow and potentially risk the deadline.
Yeah.
Now you're helping them come up with other options that may help them get even more done in a more productive way.
You're asking questions that are showing them that you're on their side and that you're a team. And also those questions you were just giving as an example, it's actually helping people in the aspect of transparency.
Exactly.
Perhaps they haven't been transparent in the way that we described with the trust model of putting everything on the table. But the way you ask the question, it helps them to put everything on the table.
Exactly. In a way that's not, in their minds, weak or complaining. It's just truly getting clarity on what's going on for me. And when you keep it all up in your head and you're thinking you can multitask and manage everything all at once and, you'll be fine. Yes, I can. Yeah. Yep. I'll get it to you. Yep. When you just answer with a yes or no, you're really not allowing even yourself to let your mind slow down enough to really see, is this an honest yes? Because, you know what? I forgot I also committed to do this other thing by tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I haven't started that either. And, oh my God, now I'm screwed. So now you drop into level 1. Just in your mental processing of it. Mm-hmm. Because the person, your boss, just asked you a yes or no type of question. Mm-hmm. And like you said, now there's no transparency to what's really going on so that the boss can help. The boss wants to help if they can.
Yeah.
If it means helping you keep your commitment so that they get what they requested and you all both agreed to on time. So they can take it and move forward with whatever they're up to. So that's level 5, partnership. Mm-hmm. When you're truly seeing that my boss isn't against me and I don't have to defend myself. I can look at this as a level 5 relationship at all times.
Yeah.
So when, as my boss, I can even ask for clarity from my boss. Well, remind me, who specifically is this report for? So I can make sure that I have it in the right format and not waste any time on that. Mm-hmm. Now your boss will give you more to work with, so you don't, go down and create something that then when you hand it in on time, they can't use.
Yeah.
Because maybe the boss didn't do a very good job of being specific on the front end. But you can also request clarity with open-ended questions so that you're more productive, you're staying in action, you're moving forward, your bosses and you are aligned, your colleagues and you are aligned if you're on a team. It works everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I know we've said this multiple times. Again, that's why I bring it in on the front end so people can get better and better at really noticing these open-ended questions, using them in and out of the day, all day long, so they become just natural for them and how they operate.
Yeah. Well, you talk about on your website, and we've discussed this in these podcasts as well, that your work with your clients is all about slowing down so that people can be deliberate and take ownership of the choices that they're making in order to create the life that they want in the professional realm, in the personal realm. So I think as we're discussing this, it's clear this is more than just semantic distinctions in word choice. The way we ask questions affects people and can either move them down the scale of energy levels or can help shift them into the higher levels and be productive so that you can be creating strong agreements with your questions.
You got it.
So that you can be building trust with your team by the way everyone is interacting. And so that you can be strengthening the relationships that you have with your family and with your friends.
Exactly. And enjoying life. All of that together makes life more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Phil. Exactly. That's exactly how it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Sherry, in the time that we have left, I wonder if you could just bring us into the professional realm and just talk about a few brief scenarios and kind of illustrate how you might use empowering questions, clarifying questions in a few different cases.
Yeah, definitely. So I know we did a podcast on interviewing and how to approach interviews and really see it as a relationship building step, that is very much a partner oriented interaction. So in interviews, when you are interviewing potential candidates to join your team, your organization, either coming in from the outside or within the company that you're interviewing for a promotional position or something else, you can use open-ended, empowering questions and clarifying questions to get more from the candidate so that you're truly getting really what this person is all about. Instead of just the surface rehearsed, yes, no answers. So it's really useful in interviews, when conducting interviews. It's very useful in performance reviews. So when you're goal setting and when you're giving feedback, there's ways you can ask for clarity when feedback is coming from your boss. Or if you're the boss giving the performance review, you can, ask for feedback from the individual on, okay, so what did you hear from that? What did you get from that? What else did you bring into the year that I didn't cover here, that I may have missed? So there's different open-ended questions that you can ask to get the performance review really a productive interaction instead of one that many people tend to dread and avoid. Goal setting, the ways to get more specific with goal setting and really get clear on goals so that they're not really vague, open-ended goals. They're really more specific and clear and collaborated by empowering questions. So what else would you like to accomplish this year? What else would make a difference in the job you're in? How else can you increase your contribution and your value?
Or how specifically would we define this goal? Or how would we define this goal in more specific terms?
Right. And what specifically would this include? So there's both ways, the boss and the actual person doing the goal setting interaction. Both of you can use empowering and open-ended clarifying questions at the same time in that same conversation. So it's not just for leaders, it's for everyone as it relates to their life. In strategy sessions or any type of product planning meetings or customer meetings, very, very useful in customer meetings if you're in sales, working with customers, or you're in purchasing, working with suppliers. In finance or IT, any of those functions in companies, open-ended questions will get you more to work with and will have other people start to take responsibility and ownership for their part of the work that they're doing. Global companies. As we have more and more global companies, there's more and more interpretation going on. When typically English is the common language. Well, English isn't everyone's first language. So when, things are spoken and said in a certain language, asking for clarity, asking open-ended questions to get more to work with, and even making sure that people are continuing to move forward with empowering questions and having them, making sure that really they, there's not anything left unsaid. So if you're only getting a yes or no answer from someone, that means that you only asked a close-ended question and that's all they're going to give you.
Yeah.
So that's your indication. Oh, wait, let me ask one more question here. And then it gives you the opportunity to move into an empowering question to get more to work with. So you can use it around the globe in any setting in business and any setting at home personally. So I know I used it, many times with my son who's now 18 as he was in his high school years. I would be like, okay, so what happened today that was interesting, that you learned something new about? Instead of, did you have a good day? Because did you have a good day? The only answer you're going to get is, uh-huh. But if I ask, so what happened today that was the most interesting thing? I really, he'll think for a minute.
Yeah.
And he'll give me a really interesting thing that happened. And it gets now a conversation more creative for the both of us.
Yeah.
Than just, did you have a good day? Which is a close-ended yes or no answer question.
Sure.
So it built our relationship to be very different over the years. As I ask more and more open-ended questions, I get more and more understanding of what's going on for him. How does he operate? How does he think? What's important to him? What does he value? And that's how it's really useful when you interact with others in your life, both personally and professionally. You start to really get a relationship with them that is more complete, more understanding of what are they all about? Mm-hmm. And how can I interact with them that is really enjoyable for both of us?
Yeah. Great. Well, Sherry, I'm kind of eager now to go off and talk to people and practice using empowering and clarifying questions. This has been kind of an eye-opening discussion about these types of questions. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I could talk all day on this one. I love this topic. So my pleasure. Thanks, Bill.
All right. I hope you also have enjoyed our podcast today. Be sure to subscribe to the Sherry Welsh Coaching Podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and a number of other podcast directories as well. For Sherry Welsh today, this is Phil Johnson. Thank you for listening.